Okay, you put your ring together, you measure it pretty close. It should just be tight enough to just get started at the wide end down there. I always put my rivets on my long staves where you lift with it. Just, to me, it looks neat. And get it started down on those staves. Okay? See how hard it is going on there? It's not a simple push on, because if you do, this wood, I don't care how dry wood is, the seasons change, the wood changes, and even though it's dry, you will, some of them have to go back and replace the bands and make new ones as you find out that there's some wood that won't quite as dry as you thought it was, even though you've had it laying up for a year. It's absorbed in this southern part of the country. It absorbs, you know, the moisture in the air and stuff. And so you make them, my point is, make them just as tight as you can possibly get them on there to start with, and even leave you a little room later to drive them further down if you have to tighten it up. Don't go exactly where you want to with them. Leave you a little space, and then as they dry out hanging up over the winter, you can go back and retighten your bands on them, okay? Then you're going to take a driver, hoop driver, and come in there and start it down and tighten it up as tight as you can get it. They're tough to start with. When you get past that edge, make sure you don't hit your staves. And once you're down, good and tight, okay, seeing it's just leaving just a little bit. That's where you want it, because that's where your bottom's going to fit into it. Right. Now these buckets were used in these pine woods to gather resin, of course water. They were used on ships. They were used in everything. I mean, you had to have a bucket for just about everything you did to haul your resin back to the barrels to put it in once you were dipping it out. And but the next thing I would do is set this on a good flat surface and take your hammer. If you've got a good, and I've got a piece of steel in my shop that's good and flat, that I set it there and just tap each stave real lightly just to get it level down here, flat, before you start cutting your croze. All right. Then your next step is called a croze, C-R-O-Z-E. See that blade right there? And it sits on top of your bucket, and it cuts your groove for your bottom to fit into. So you basically put it up there, C-R-O-Z-E, and the groove is called croze also, C-R-O-Z-E. So you're going to work it against the side, and that's another reason I made this wheel, so that it'll lock, the ears will lock, so I can pull against it. And as that blade cuts in, it's going to cut a groove all the way around that bucket. See it starting right there? And it's going to cut your groove all the way around and cut it as deep. I usually cut it about 1/4 inch deep. antique crozes. You can buy them online. I don't know if they still make them or not, but I used the antiques to do what they did. And you cut and you groove, okay? Now this is a different sawtooth croze. That's what I call them, sawtooth. It's a little wider, so I use a second one to clean out my groove with. Now you gotta be sharp, they won't cut it. So you can get videos online about how to sharpen tools, and learning to sharpen the tools is a major part of cooking. It's not just how sharp they are, it's the angle. And you have got to get the correct angles and the correct sharpness, or you'll kill yourself trying to do this. So cleaning out the groove. Okay. Can you see that? See that groove cut around in there? That's where your bottom is going to fit into. Okay. Croze. Next step, you're going to take a set of dividers, is what they call them. These come in all sizes for barrels, buckets, different. Got 2 points. We call them a compass, but it's got an adjustment screw where you can tighten it up. And what you do, you get in that croze groove, and you want to get exactly, you keep adjusting it until you can walk around that croze groove 6 equal times. And when it comes back to the same point, after 6 times walking around it, punch it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When it comes back in 6x exact circle in 6 times and comes back to the same point, then you have the size for your bottom. Okay, we'll set our croze with our dividers. You're going to just come to the middle of the board, use as little as possible. Avoid many cracked areas. Point down in the board. And that gives you size for your bottom. Now you're going to cut out that circle that you made with your compass, the size of the bottom. Then the idea is to cut down the sides of it until you've got a point in the middle. That point is what goes in your croze, okay, here. So you're going to cut and cut with your draw knife. Cut it into a point on end. All the way around till you get to a tiny point here. Okay? Now, I cheat a little bit. I'm old and I'm not going to stand here all day and saw wood. We do use a jigsaw to cut out the bottoms. And then where I showed you a while ago with the blade, sometimes if I'm at an event, I'll stand there and hack on it till I get it into a point. But this disc right here that you can buy at the hardware store, made from metal on a 4-inch grinder, will sand down that edge very quickly right into a point on your bottom. And it takes about a tenth of the time, and you can go back to work. So, alright, but that's not how they did it in 1700s, but that's how today, you can see we cut this thing down into a point. Okay? Now back to the old ways. We're going to take that bucket, knock that band back off. That hoop, they call them. Go ahead and put it on the table. Take your tool, knock it back off your bucket. That's going to leave your croze, and your band is gone, so now this should swell up. You take your bottom, lay it inside your top part where it's bigger. Try to get it started in your croze. We're tapping it in. And hit it with wood, if not you're going to break something, okay? And you see it's dropping into that croze groove, the point is. And then you're going to kind of pull it together a little bit with wood. So you've got your bottom pressed into the groove that you cut the croze, and you're going to take your band in, hopefully. If you haven't cut it a little bit too big, and sometimes get your rivet on your long stave. Okay, then you're going to round it up a little bit with your band on it. Walk around it, seat your hoop. As you can see, that pulls it together at the bottom around your bottom. Now, if your bottom is the right exact size and you've measured correctly and not messed it up when you're cleaning it up and small, making it too small and everything, it'll tighten up and it'll actually hold water. Okay? You can see the bottom of it. It's in the croze groove. Now, to finish this thing, you need to knock, once this is on good and tight and got you held together, knock this hoop back off and sand and clean it up as pretty as you want it, so that then this is so tight here that I would leave it like that, because later on next year you may want to come in here and tighten it up as the wood dries out. But knock it off, sand it, clean it smooth, drill your hole to put your rope or metal, whatever you're going to put in the top of it in these ears, and clean up the inside the way we did the bottom side with your tools, so that it's slick and you got a bucket.